5 retirement expenses when you're doing your retirement planning you get wrong. Okay, folks, I thought it was time for another front porch discussion. Getting real with Joe on the front porch. Many of you folks know that I was a retirement coach for about a year and a half and met with over 300 families. Great. I loved doing it, just became a lot of work. Started interrupting my retirement, so I had to shut that down. But I have a lot of information gathered from meeting with 300 folks. I interact with people on the comments. I get email, family and friends. People know what I do and am willing to talk about. So a lot of input sources on retirement, and today's topic, retirement expenses. What do most people get wrong? So let's get into it. I got 5 of them. Number 1 is medical expenses. You wouldn't believe the number of times that I would look at somebody's financial plan and they would have $2,000 a month in there for their medical, for this is 2 people, like a husband and a wife. And it's like they all read some brochure that says your medical expenses are going to be $24,000 a year. Could be. I'm currently paying $1,000 a month, and that's for my wife and I. That includes vision, that includes dental, has a high deductible in it, $3,000. I'm delighted with the coverage. Delighted with the coverage. And like I said, I'm paying half that. And I've had, it's with Indiana Farm Bureau. That's not available to everyone, but there are all kinds of options. The Affordable Care is a great option. If you can manage your income level, you get a lot of subsidies. I have friends paying, $400 a month. That just didn't work for me. I'm going to attach a video, and it's in every one of my videos. If you go into show more, I have like my top 12 most popular videos, and the one on medical is one. So take a look at that where I go into detail. But like I said, Indiana Farm Bureau, the Affordable Care Act, there's health shares. Health shares you can get into with a few $100s a month. You can buy high deductible plans. Say, for example, you're 60, you're healthy. You may buy a plan with a $10,000 deductible and it's $400 a month. There are options out there. None of them I've seen anywhere close to $2,000 a month. So this is a common one. People just input the data in there without doing any investigation. You got to do the investigation. $2,000, I don't know anybody paying anywhere near that. Number 2 is inflation. This wasn't a big deal a couple years ago. People would put in, 2-3% inflation. Now I was meeting with people that were putting in 6, 7, 8. I've had 10% inflation. Somebody had, folks, you put in 10% inflation, that means your cost every year for the next 30 years are going to go up 10% a year. You'll never retire. You're going to work till you're 100. Okay? I put in 5% as pessimistic. Inside the new retirement program, the software package I use, it's the first link below if you want to see the software package I use. It's free for 2 weeks. I pay $120 a year. Love, love, love it. You put in a pessimistic number and an optimistic number. So pessimistically, I put in, hey, 5%, and that's for the duration. That's for my entire life. I put in 2% optimistic. It calculates an average. And so for, if I want to look at deciding to retire, I may hit average. If I want to hit, well, how bad can things get? I'll hit pessimistic, and then I'll look at changing my expenses, and I'll stress test it and see what my levers are. But using 6, 7, 8, 10 for 30 years, I personally think that's going to prevent you from ever retiring, and I think is just not based on history. Okay, it could be that bad for a few years. It's not going to be that bad for 30 years in a row. My personal opinion. Again, my opinion. Number 3, leaving out non-monthly expenses. I used to say non-reoccurring, and everybody in the comments got on me for non-reoccurring. These are things like buying a car, replacing the roof on your house, replacing a water heater, paying for a wedding, big purchases that you know you're going to have happen. You know, I'm going to have to replace the roof on my house eventually. 17 years old, probably in the next 8 years, I'm going to be replacing that. I need to put that in my plan. So inside a new retirement, it's very easy. You put it's called one-time expenses, I'm pretty sure, that you put in there and say, hey, okay, I'm going to replace the roof here. I'm going to buy a new car in 8 years. My hot water heater. Yeah, people don't like me calling it a hot water heater either. That's a Midwestern term, I guess. But those one-off expenses that don't happen every month or even every year, make sure they're in your plan. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, so I'm always getting on people for that. Hey, I got one. My first thing I'm going to do when I retire is remodel the kitchen. It's going to be $50,000, and it's not in their plan, but it's in their head. Oh, I got enough money to do that. Well, you start adding up a few of those, it can get to be a problem, and it's also a problem. Timing can be a problem. You know, if you take it out this year, you may have to pay an additional $10,000 in taxes, where if you do it at the beginning of next year, you'll save on taxes just because of how things are working together. Social Security, how's that? When you taking that and why? Any lump sum from a pension, any windfall that comes in, maybe you're working part-time and you're going to be quitting. All these things interrelate to each other, so put it in your freaking plan, okay? So leaving out those non-monthly expenses, big deal. Don't put that in your head. Put that in your plan. Number 4, spending changes as you age. Most people put in, hey, my base spending, let's just say it's $5,000 a month. They'll have that adjusted for inflation with their inflation number, and that's just what they're going to be spending for the next 35 years. It never works out that way. You know, you have years of spending, like I'm almost 60 now. Between 60 and 75, I call, you know, and it's common to call these the go-go years. So I have additional money in, so I have like $5,000 as a base, just hypothetically. As that's just me living in this house, paying my taxes, doing stuff, eating, paying the electric bill, $5,000. But then I add go-go spending, which may be, you know, $1,000 a month I add on. So the $12,000 a year for fun stuff, things to do while you are retired. Put in whatever number you want. So say that's $1,000 a month between, and that's adjusted for inflation on up to 75. And then when I turn 75, I actually cut that go-go spending in half. Cut it down to, in this example, $500 a month from 75 to 80. And then at 80, I implement no-go spending, which means I just need that base of $5,000. That's been adjusted for inflation the whole way, but I'm not doing any of the exotic travel and things like that. So this may not be your formula, but you need to have some thought process around your spending is not going to be the same. I'm spending a lot more in my 50s and 60s than in my later 70s, early 80s, and 90s. You know, look at people, you know, that are 85 years old. Are they, how much money are they spending on adventures and new cars and things like that? Now, somebody always comes out and says, I know an 85-year-old that's continuing in their go-go spending. Yes, there are those people out there. Probably 2%. Okay, so are you going to be in the 2% or are you going to be in the 98% that's not? So the reason I say this is it's very important to, when you determine when you're going to retire, if you think you're going to be spending at a go-go rate your entire 95 years, you know, on this earth, you're going to work 2, 3, 4, 5 years longer than if you're more pragmatic and reasonable and say, yeah, I'm probably going to be backing off, and you'll say, hey, I can retire 1 or 2 years earlier. So before I get to the last one, if we have not met, my name is Joe. I retired at the age of 54, almost 56. The purpose of my channel is to tell my story, to give you an example of what retirement is like. I'm not studying retirement. I'm not a certified financial planner with, you know, 150 clients. I'm going through this, okay? So I am studying all the rules out there, all the best practices, the rules of thumb. I'm living this, and I'm hoping that inspires you a little bit. I'm sharing the tools that I use, some of the traps that I either through experience or through study have decided to avoid. And hopefully that convinces you to say, hey man, I can retire a year earlier, 2 years earlier because you heard Joe's story. Okay, number 5 expense that people just get wrong, taxes. Don't roll your eyes at this one. I get a lot of eye rolls when I mention taxes. Everybody goes, yeah, I need to manage taxes. Okay, do it. Well, what does that mean? I use a package called New Retirement. Again, first link below for free 2 weeks. I enter timing of Social Security, how long I'm gonna live, my one-time expenses, my base spending, any windfalls I got, any part-time income I've got, and all that, and it looks year by year and has a graph and says this is what your taxes are in this year, total taxes. Then there's another chart that shows taxes by tax bracket. So it'll say, okay, you got this much in the 10% bracket, this much in the 12%, this much in the, what is the next one? 22 and 24 and 32% tax bracket. All those different tax brackets getting confusing when you got the tax brackets today and the tax brackets everybody's thinking we're going to go back to in 2026. So anyway, you can see the tax brackets that you're paying into. What a lot of people look at, hey, I'm retiring, I'm going to retire at 60, and they notice the first 5 years they're not paying any tax. Well, and they're celebrating that. Hey, I don't pay any tax. And then you look out at RMD time at 75 for me, and all of a sudden you're in the 28% tax bracket. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And and taxes can't be avoided, but they can be minimized with a plan. So instead of taking 0 tax this year, maybe I fill up the 15% tax bracket and I avoid paying 28 or 32 in the future. Big deal. Tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, are on the line here for having a tax plan. New Retirement makes it super easy. Tells you exactly what your taxes are going to be and proposes changes you can make. Okay, it doesn't get much easier than that. So there you go. Those are the 5 expenses that I see. 75% of the people making the mistakes they're making with these expenses. They just get them wrong, and it's not complex. No, it's not complicated. I get that wrong. It's not complicated. This can be figured out. It is complex. There's a lot of moving parts. I strongly recommend you go with a comprehensive software package if you're doing this on your own. If you're doing this through a financial advisor, great. They use a very similar package. My financial advisor uses an identical package. But going with a assets under management financial advisor is expensive, but it may be the best decision you ever made. But if you're going it alone, pay $120 a year for a state-of-the-art package like I'm showing there in my first link called New Retirement. There you go. Do you have any other expenses that you may have gotten wrong? All you retirees out there, expenses that boy, I missed that. Put them in the comments. The comments is where the gold is. Make sure you're reading them. Like and subscribe. This is Joe out.